Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. It's a great honor to be here at this transcendental dwelling to inaugurate this as yet another temple of Lord Chaitanya, another spot for. As all of us are here together, we make a special prayer that for the whole family, that this may be a place for many years in which all of you are able to stay firmly fixed in your vows in Krishna consciousness and always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead throughout all the days and all the phases of the day, morning, evening, night, and even when you're sleeping. And that this may become a place for expanding the Sankirtan movement and thus pleasing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Everyone who agrees with these sentiments, please say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. There it is. And the human life is very special. It's rarely achieved. There's more room. We've fed as many as 1,000 people in here before. It's rarely achieved. The human life. Labvam sudurlabham idam bahusam bhavanti. The Srimad Bhagavatam says that there are 8,400,000 species of life, and the human life is especially rare. Labvam sudurlabham. You don't get it very easily. It comes after the soul migrates from one body to the next through millions of lifetimes. Actually, we consider this lifetime to be significant. And as I'm saying, in the human life it is because of what we can do with it, but actually as far as a time span, it's very insignificant. It goes by very quickly. Not only that, the Shastra says, Labvam sudurlabham idam bahusam bhavante anityam. The life that we have, even though it's very important because it's artadam, we can get the highest value out of this human life. It's anityam. It means it's not permanent. There's no guarantee, and there's no lease that you sign when you come out into this world that guarantees you that there's no recourse. You don't get to go back and say, I would like to have this many years. And Prabhupada mentions many times about how he saw a wealthy man in his neighborhood who was dying ask his physician's assistant, he said, "Can you please arrange? I need 4 more years to finish my plans." But Prabhupada said that material nature is so cruel that he was taken away anyway. So there's no written guarantee anywhere that you'll get that says you get this many breaths or years or anything like that. It's already fixed up. We don't know what it is. That's one of the reasons the Shastra says that we're born into ignorance. However, most people accept this lifetime to be permanent and to be everything. This is a mistake. It's temporary, but it's very valuable. And the value is that during this short span of life in the human body, one can dedicate oneself to developing the kind of consciousness in which in the next life one will get a body that is permanent. That is a spiritual body. This body is material. And the soul is completely different. It's categorically different from the material body in its properties. That's why it's so frustrating to live in the body. It needs constant maintenance, and it gradually dwindles and goes away. And it's very frustrating for an eternal, very subtle living being to be in that situation. That's why this verse I'm bringing to mind today says that it's anityam, but it's artadam. It's very, very valuable. And so the value can be realized through the process of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is very simple. It means to be conscious of Krishna. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakara. If one is not in Krishna consciousness, then one's in darkness, just as much as when the sun is in our purview, and when we're standing in the sun, there's light. And when we turn our back on the sun, or when we close all the shades, then we don't have any light. So Krishna is the source of all light. He's the source of knowledge. He's the source of our sustenance and our maintenance. And just being conscious of him throughout the day, 24 hours a day, somehow or other, the acharyas who have given us the mode of worship as taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is very helpful to us. We can study the ways in which, the mood in which they say we should practice Krishna consciousness, and also tat karma pravartanat. There are various particular practices that if one takes up, one will be successful. So a very encouraging verse from one of our acharyas, Srila Rupa Goswami, Hare Krishna Jagarini Ki Jai, is Yena Tena Prakarina Mana Krishna Niveshayat. And this Yena Tena means what? I said it the other day in class, so you should probably remember. Yena Tena. Yena Tena Prakarena. Or as some of my friends used to say, Yena Tena Prakarena. You know what it means, Yena Tena? What? Yeah, somehow or other. It means that things may not always fit in a neat little box, but somehow or other, according to wherever you live, your living room may be upstairs, it may be downstairs. It may be, you may live in a house, you may live in a field, you may spend most of your time in the office. Some people spend 18 hours a day in an office. And but the one way or another, yena tena prakarena, there's somehow or other one should manat Krishna deveshaya, one should think of Krishna, fix one's mind on Krishna. And tat karma pravartanat, there are various ways in which the acharyas have shown that one can stay conscious of Krishna. The first and foremost way is to chant Hare Krishna. This is the primary means by which one can stay in contact with Krishna. And I read in a letter that Prabhupada wrote to Jayananda Prabhu. I didn't read the letter that Jayananda Prabhu wrote to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada wrote back to him and said, it's the same old answer, chant Hare Krishna. And actually, if one chants Hare Krishna, then one's immediately in contact with Krishna himself. Because there's no difference between Krishna and his name. And so if one says Hare Krishna, then as Prabhupada used to say, Krishna is dancing on one's tongue. And Krishna is present in his name and in our lives. So one of the primary ways, or the primary way, in which to always stay within the presence of Krishna is to keep the vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra going constantly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. By the way, that was an ecstatic kirtan. And I don't know if you've ever had a Harinam out here but one of your neighbors came out to look out the window, and he was going, what the, some, big American guy with garlands on, he was looking through there, we're dancing. But it was very beautiful. And it's an example of how the holy name can manifest anywhere. And when Krishna appears in that form, the holy name, then he purifies. He purifies us externally and internally. In fact, one of the ways in which one purifies oneself if you don't have access to water is by chanting Hare Krishna. And internally one stays pure by chanting Hare Krishna as well. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught this simple process, and his spiritual master confirmed it by telling him, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva 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 Gatiranyata. That in the age of Kali, there's no other way than except for chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name. And because my mind is devious, I might think that maybe I'll do something else instead and make spiritual advancement. Prabhupada said sometimes sadhus live by the Ganga and they become familiar with the Ganga, and then they think, I'll go somewhere else to take bath. It's just Ganga. And I'll find some other fancy place. And Prabhupada also noted that my disciples, although it's a simple process, chant Hare Krishna. He said, then I noticed my disciples are collecting many austere books, austere books, and thinking that by some other method I'll find to make rapid advancement in Krishna consciousness. But the only way is by chanting. So Prabhupada, as we read the other night, said that in order to do this, fulfill one's personal vow for chanting Hare Krishna, one has to sit down tight. He said, sit down tight. So that takes a little doing, because naturally my mind wants me to be active, or my mind is active, and I follow it. And I think about doing many, many other things except for chanting Hare Krishna. So there has to be a time during the day when I sit down tight. I close down everything else. And he said, then you chant, you sit down tight and you chant very loudly. And until you develop one-mindedness. And just by the association of the holy name, one can develop this one-mindedness. What does that mean? It means many things, but one thing we can take from this, from the Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavihastani Shuni Chaiva Shrupakecha Panditat Samadarshina. That a person who is beginning to rise to spiritual consciousness, or a person who's a pandit, a learned person, sees all living entities equally. This equality is something that Krishna mentions throughout the Bhagavad Gita, that one who sees equally everywhere. Of course, there are many varieties within the material world, but one seeing the underlying equality of all living entities, because they're all parts and parcels of Krishna. And one also, while chanting Hare Krishna, will get uncommon knowledge. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashuvairagyam Jnanam Chayat Haitukam. So two things come as concomitants from chanting Hare Krishna, and that is knowledge and detachment from the world. That means that one gets knowledge that I'm not my body. This is not easy to attain, because the modes of passion and ignorance are so oppressive. And because of their influence, I think I am my body, or I don't even inquire if I'm my body. I have so little light. But by chanting Hare Krishna, one purifies one's mind and senses, and then rises to the transcendental platform and can see for oneself, that is, I'm not my body. This is extremely valuable, and it's the most important step that one can take, or the most important kind of perspective that one can develop in life, is to see the difference between the body and the soul. And Krishna mentions it early on in the Bhagavad Gita. Matras dehino sminyata dehe komaran yovaranjara tata dehan tara praptir dhiras tatra namuyate. He says that just as the soul is passing from boyhood to youth to old age, then we similarly pass into another body at death. And that dhiras tatra namuyate, a person who's spiritually advanced becomes dhira, or undisturbed by these changes. This is not such an ordinary thing, because practically everybody's disturbed by the body and the mind. I'm forced by my mind and my senses. I see that you're sending down the security force. I'm forced by my mind and senses to act in ways that are not helpful to me. So if one sits down tight and chants Hare Krishna every day, especially if one will complete one's 16 rounds of japa, which is the only thing that Prabhupada asked us to do. There's no other thing he asked us to do. There's things he asked us not to do. But those are to clear the way so that one can chant 16 rounds. When he first introduced, he said 64 rounds, because this was Lord Chaitanya's standard. when Mahaprabhu was traveling as a sannyasi, he said, I won't eat in anybody's house unless they're chanting 64 rounds. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta also said 64 rounds, but he engaged his disciples in so much service. They were asking, how do I do 64 rounds? Are we doing something? He said, just chant all day long. If you weren't doing service constantly in the mat, then you would be asked to do 64 rounds. Otherwise, minimum was 16. Prabhupada then set that because he saw that the devotees couldn't chant 64 rounds. And he says that we have to chant at least 16. And by doing this faithfully, first of all, it's following the order of the spiritual master, and one gets great spiritual power by this, following the disciplic succession and what's been passed down by our founder Acharya. And second of all, one develops a relationship with the holy name and gains qualities that are not attainable anywhere else. You can't get these qualities. You can't get knowledge and detachment. Good work, by the way. You're hired. And also, the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the duties that we have at different times of our life. So in the Grihastha ashram, which is especially meant for taking care of others. In fact, the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni tells Yudhishthira that the Grihasthas are meant to treat all living entities as their children. And he names deer and cows and dogs and flies. He said you should see these living entities even as you see your own son. You should treat them like that. Because the Bhagavatam says practically, what's the difference? They're innocent living entities and they need help. And so the Grihastha's vision is that I'm organizing myself in this one place, and I'm making money, or in the old days, getting grains and resources so that I can support others in their service. And it's a very important service to have a house like this, and then to go out and work. It's an austerity. But if you're performing that austerity so that you can use the money, whatever you don't need, to spread Krishna consciousness, then it becomes extremely valuable for the whole world. And in the Bhagavatam, Narada also says that one shouldn't collect excess money. Should give away what you're not using, what you don't need. And Prabhupada comments that this means that if you hoard money, if you try to just keep more and more, it'll cause anxiety. And he also says that it's illegal, and you'll have to have some sinful reaction for that. So Grihasthas have full permission to work, to take care of other living entities, and to give whatever a portion of their wealth that they don't need to spread Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said it at 50%. And he said that Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami set an example by giving 50% of everything they had to spread Krishna consciousness, 25% they kept for personal emergencies, and 25% they distributed amongst their family members and so forth. So this is one of the ways in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu conceived that the Sankirtan movement would spread all over the world. And it's exactly what you're doing here in this household. Where's Ramrati? I'm looking to identify with my... Yeah, so, and that is that each house should become a temple. And within the house, you'll be the representative here. And within the house, then if the vibration's going on, and that at least the 5 kinds of the most potent types of devotional service are being practiced, this is my realization. I mean, household life and having a job, all the family working together, you got to go to school, right? And all these kinds of things, it's challenging. It takes up a lot of time. So the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that out of the 64 items of devotional service, 5 are particularly important. One is chanting Hare Krishna, and that I already mentioned, that everyone has to chant those who are initiated, they have to chant at least 16 rounds a day in order to be fully empowered to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. And this is the basis of where we get our power to spread Krishna consciousness, how we make good decisions and so forth, how we're able to develop compassion in our hearts and the ability to cooperate with others and so forth, the potency of the holy name. And so chanting Hare Krishna is the number one thing. And then there's reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized Srimad Bhagavatam as the most important literature. He said, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. It's the spotless authority for everything that we do. Everything comes back to the Bhagavatam. It has to be corroborated with Bhagavatam. Otherwise, Mahaprabhu doesn't accept it. And the Bhagavatam also, it purifies one of all of the contamination in material life because it's non-different from Krishna. There are many verses. You all know Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna, and that series of verses that Prabhupada wrote when he was on the Jaladuta, saying that by regularly hearing Bhagavatam, one gradually purifies one's heart and comes to know Krishna scientifically and directly, and also becomes free from the lower modes of material nature in one's life. You're no longer affected by Rajas and Tamas. That's practically impossible. You can't do it without Krishna's direct touch. That means hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. It's impossible because the modes are so sticky. They're like mango sap. Once you get it in your hair, forget about it. You might as well just go to Tirupati and shave up. So the modes are like that also, but the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam will unstick us from the modes of material nature miraculously. Just by hearing that, Hridrogam Ashvapahinot Yapcharena Dhira, Bhagavatam says, it rids one of the rogue disease of the heart, the dreaded disease of the heart, which is lust. This uncommon, unnatural desire to enjoy the material world, of which I'm not a part. I'm not part of this material world. Somehow I've become entangled. So we have to hear Bhagavatam regularly. This is necessary. To live in a house, to maintain oneself in a balanced situation, working, going to school, one has to chant Hare Krishna, one has to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. One also has to associate with devotees. So Prabhupada writes in a purport that those who think that they can advance in devotional service without sadhu sangha, without the association of other Vaishnavas, they're living in a hallucination. This is a kind of hallucination because many have tested this also, and then proved that it's 100% true. And that is that if one thinks that I can go off on my own and be separate from having some, being das anudas, working under someone, having a chain of command, what to speak of having association with devotees who keep me in line all the time and I'm watching and their good habits and I'm getting something from their sangha. If I separate myself from them, then very quickly I'll become reconvinced that the material world is my home. And I'll become optimistic that maybe if I just try a little harder this time, that maybe I can make it. Maybe there is a little happiness. I missed it somewhere. This happens. And therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was asked, who's a Vaishnav? He said, Asatsangatag, a Vaishnavachar. He said a Vaishnav is somebody who avoids bad association. But it's not just that, it's also that one must place oneself deliberately in good association. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Sadhu Sangha. This is one of the 5 that is most important. And then, living in the holy dham. One has to have a holy dham that one feels connected with. Just like our Sundarananda Prabhu, he always gravitates towards the ISKCON of Silicon Valley. You'll find him in there. He's like, where are you going now? I'm just going to the temple. If you go in the temple, you'll see him in there, and he's just sitting there chanting Hare Krishna. He likes it there. That's his place. It's his perch. It's where he hangs out. And he likes it. And so everyone should like the dham. ISKCON of Silicon Valley is a dham. A dham can manifest anywhere. It's like an embassy. Krishna authorizes it. Prabhupada empowered us to set up these dhams. He told us how to do it. And it becomes an official embassy. Like one time I was out in Calcutta, had been in India for 3 months. I had to do something with my visa, and I had to go to the American embassy in Calcutta. I was starting to become like a bona fide Calcutta resident. I was even drinking the tap water. I thought I was so cool as a brahmachari. I drink out of the tap. I live here in Calcutta. And I went to the embassy, and the Marines were there at the door, and I looked just past where they have the windows and the bars, and they had Arrowhead American water. They didn't even have, they flew in water from America, everything. There were snacks on the table, and they were all from America. Nothing Indian, all American. I looked in there and go, wow, that's America in there. And I realized what Prabhupada meant by how the Dham is an embassy. As you may think, oh, it's here, it's there, but actually when you go in, you see, oh, it's the spiritual world. So when you go to ISKCON Silicon Valley, you see Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan's there, Lakshmi Nrsinga's Dev's there, Mahaprabhu himself is right there. And the protocol inside is no different from the Dham. The same activities are going on inside. And so one should want to live in the Dham or near the Dham or come every day. One's life should rotate around the holy Dham. And then finally, deity worship. We have to be able to see the deity. So such a beautiful altar here. We have Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Shishi Gornitai. There's Gopal is there. Who else did I miss? Gornitai. I said Gornitai. And then And then you have the Acharyas. Srila Indradumna Maharaj is there. It's Prabhupada showing, here's my lineage. Here's who I'm working under. And then, here's the Acharyas going up to Krishna. This is a bona fide system set up by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and mentioned by Krishna himself in detail in the Srimad Bhagavatam. How you should have a place. You walk in someone's house, first thing is where's the altar? And my friend Satyadev Prabhu, whenever we're traveling different places extensively, he always tell me, I go to the altar, and when I see the altar, I can tell what's the consciousness of the household and the residents there. And you look at the altar, you can see, what are they thinking? How are they maintaining their Krishna consciousness and so forth? And so worshiping Krishna at home for householders is essential. You have to have some regulated program to bring things to Krishna. Bring your stuff to Krishna and say, it's not my stuff, it's your stuff. Otherwise you start thinking it's my stuff. And that's a real problem. That's the main problem of household life. You get too much stuff and you start thinking it's my stuff, and then it smothers you. You can become awash in stuff. So if one centers one's house around the deity and tells Krishna that this is all yours, I'm just maintaining it for you, and offers everything to Krishna, and then also performs at least the basic principles of deity worship, should maintain a nice clean altar, and at least for Gaurnitai one should offer Sankirtan, please Gaurnitai. And of course at home, offering one's food, it's a big extra step, but it's one of the steps that changes one from animal consciousness to human consciousness, taking time. Actually, that extra step where you make a plate for Krishna first, and then you offer it and say, Krishna, please eat. And then afterwards you take. Then it makes all the difference in the world. And these are simple principles of deity worship. Simple but not easy, because householder life means strum and drung. It means a lot of moving parts, people growing up, people going out, coming back in. The energy's moving in all different directions. So having a semblance of order based around worshiping the deity, and a sense of that the deity is the proprietor of everything. And then being able to clean the altar. And just by polishing the silver or the brass, one feels some satisfaction. You wouldn't think that would be true, because you think, unless I'm signing a contract, or, I just made a phone call, that there was a sale, or whatever it is. I just completed a project that I've been working on 18 hours a day for the last 6 weeks, And they said, if I didn't finish, that I wouldn't be promoted and I'd miss my bonus, unless that'll make me happy. But actually, if you just polish the brass, you have a little cow on the altar and you take them and it's like, okay, get cleaned up. And you polish them up and, put them back on the altar and you say, actually, that makes me happy. The other things, they're not so satisfying, actually. But simple deity worship at home, keeping the altar clean, polishing the Lord's things, straightening them out. He appreciates it. Krishna's so appreciative that if you do little things for him, he'll reciprocate. Like he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati taraham bhakti paritam ashnami paritapana. If you just offer me a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I'll accept it. And there's an exchange of love. Krishna takes it, and he gives you back a sense of feeling whole, and you'll feel it in your heart. So if anyone keeps these five principles in their lives, in their home, then Mahaprabhu said, even if you don't have faith in them, and even if it's just a little connection with them, then he said you'll still progress to the highest level of Krishna consciousness. So this is one of the meanings of yena tena prakarena, that somehow or other, stay connected to these 5 activities in your life. No matter what happens, what else happens, if you keep these, then you'll find yourself advancing in Krishna consciousness. You'll become very happy. Gaur Premanande Haribol. Nirkula couldn't be here today because we have a Swami at home, and he had meetings. Devotees were coming to see him from different places, and she had to stay and cook lunch for I was going to say Devamrita Swami. I guess I'm thinking about Maharaj because he's coming, and I'm going to see him in Japan too. And so she sends her deepest regards and love to everybody here, and best wishes for this all success in your household. Where'd Ramrati go? Oh, there you are all. Okay, Hare Krishna. For best success here. And so does Maharaj too. He was scheduled to come, and then a bunch of other stuff happened. And as many of you know who have kept swamis in your house, you never know what's going to happen next. Like with Radhanath Maharaj, I was with him in the GBC meetings in Mayapur, and then he told me we had to go to lunch together at Nareshwar's house. And so he said, I'm in a big hurry. I gotta catch my cab, and that I gotta get to the airport. So we got to get over there really fast. And of course, Nareshwar was famous for feeding devotees. He makes pizza, so you don't want to miss that. So we're walking down from the roof of the GBC thing, and Maharaj had just told me how big a hurry he was in. Then he stops to talk to the wife of Ananda Tirtha. What's her name? You know Ananda Tirtha, right? Who does all the organizing in Mayapur. What's his wife's name? Anyway, she's doing some important parts, so he's talking there, and I'm thinking, okay, we're in a hurry. And then he starts going down the stairs, meets somebody in the stairwell. Oh, then he had to tell me something before we could get in the car. Then it gets down, and then 100 people come over to see Maharaj. And I mean, I just seeing it. It takes what a normal person takes. It takes a famous devotee like that, maybe like 10 times longer. You just have to be patient. How about any reflections? Yeah. Who raised your hand? Oh, okay. Mike.
Maharaj, you were reflecting on the Dham and connecting it to the temple. How is the Dham different from the temple?
Oh, there's no difference.
So if I don't have a temple near me, where do I recognize the Dham?
Well, you create that environment in your home. You can also go to Mayapur TV and check in with the Dham. And so Lord Chaitanya said that you should live in the Dham always. but if you can't live there physically, he said, you should live there within your mind and heart. And it's nice if you can go to the Dham, but you'll read in the purport of the verse that Malini likes so much in the 10th canto, 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam about Lord Chaitanya, Dhyayam Sada Paribhavagnam Bhishtadoham. In that verse, there's a mention there that if you can't go to the Dham in Kali Yuga, then don't worry, because if you're worshiping Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, tirtaspadam, you're getting the result of going to all the holy places. If you can go, if you can make the arrangement and go for a few days, you can get something in the Dham that you don't get anywhere else. It's very special. Entering the Dham, you may get an impression there that you'll take away with you. So, but that same impression can be created by associating with advanced devotees. This is Bhavadvida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Bhibo Tirtha Kurvanti Tirtani Swantak Snena Gadabrita. This is what Yudhishthira noticed about Vidura. He said, you're a walking place of pilgrimage. You purify even the holy places. And you can experience this if you find a sadhu and you can be next to the sadhu and it's like, okay, I feel satisfied. You feel like you're connected to the Dham. Tirtha. A tirtha means a bridge. It's a connecting place. It connects the temporal to the eternal. And so that's part of yena tena prakarena, is to find out how to stay connected in that way. Find the ways in which you can always feel like you're in the Dham. Priya?
So I'd like to point my understanding. It's not that you have to make like a big change and make big improvements to feel like I've accomplished something and feel successful in your life. Even doing small things for Krishna can make me so happy.
Such a nice point. I was having breakfast with Dave Amrit this morning, and he was saying, when he Krishna consciousness. Actually, he came because of Prabhupada's books. He says he had no intention of associating with devotees. He's like, I don't know who these people are, but I wouldn't want nothing to do with them. But he's an intellectual. So he started reading the books, and he goes, these are the best books I ever read. So anyway, when the devotees first, he kept meeting them. And, they induced him to take more books. That didn't take much inducement, but they also extracted most of his money too, because he's very soft-hearted. He's always giving. He's a very giving person. So then he told me when he first started practicing sadhana, he said, I started with one mantra a day, one bead. Because I told him about in corporate how we give people these little japa beads that have 27 beads and we do a round together. And he goes, yes, and I started with one bead. He said one bead a day. And oftentimes this is a way of making a comeback, because in devotional service you'll have ups and downs. But don't worry, you're still making progress. It's like when you're going to say you're on an expedition, you're going to go to the Himalaya, and you're going to climb Mount Everest. That's the top peak that's prema. Getting all the way to the top, past anartha nivritti and ruchi and asakti and then bhava and then prema. So all the way to the top. So you're on your way there, right? And to get to the Himalaya, you have to go through the foothills. Foothills go like this. You're climbing an elevation, but you're going up and down, up and down, up and down. So in the stages, on the way to the higher stages of devotional service, there's a way in which we may feel ourselves up and down. So one of the yena tena prakarena, somehow or other remember Krishna. A spirit of this means that when you're down, you have to learn how to get back up again. You can't give up. You have to have faith and you have to have patience. And you'll see in time you'll be fine if you continue this practice. And sometimes the way to get off the mat when you're knocked down, that's a wrestling term, right? The mat, you get knocked on the mat. So you're on the mat. So what do you do to get back up? Start with something that you can handle right now. It can be anything. One bead. Can you do that? I'll try. Hare Krishna. Do one mantra. Where else would you start? You have to start where you are right now. And from there, you can always get back up. And Prabhupada he said to a godbrother of mine who had taken initiation, then he came to meet Prabhupada, in a private place, and he told Prabhupada, I can't follow this. And Prabhupada said, one day you will walk. He said, just like a baby, when it first starts to try to walk, it gets up and falls down over and over again. You have to, and he said, he just keeps getting up. He said, so one day you will walk. And he got so encouraged by that he remembered that this is the process of growth. You have to know how to get back up again and just keep doing it over and over again. But there will come a time when one can stand on one's own 2 feet. And that's great happiness in life. Yes. Profound. You can carry it with you. Just that he forgot about death, but death didn't forget about him. Death never forgets. And Prabhupada once said, you have to cheat. You have to be so dexterous in this human form of life, because it's meant for dexterity. Human life's not meant for being dull. So he said you have to be so dexterous that you can cheat death before death cheats you. So you really have to be prepared, because death is very tricky and can cheat you at any time. Who was that next? Vishakalila. Okay.
So you were making the point about how one can be happy just by cleaning the brass, the silver paraphernalia of the deities. This morning, I was actually cleaning the silver water cups in my home, and I felt so satisfied because I felt this is one service where I'm not going to be judged by anyone, and even if I'm going to be judged by the Lord, He's only going to see the good in it. So I was able to connect the point that you said, that this might be a simple service, but then this gives so much satisfaction to the heart, because you know the Lord is your ultimate well-wisher. So whatever you do, He's only going to see, even if you do something with fault, He's only going to see the best, your intention of doing that seva.
Yes, especially if you don't take that for granted. Like, we don't think like that. We know it's true, we do the best we can, but if we make a mistake, then we depend on the Lord's mercy. But if we think, well, He doesn't care, He just likes, if I tried, so I can leave it halfway or whatever. Then Shastra says, be careful, because you can become negligent. You can develop a kind of negligence in your life. The other point of deity worship is it requires you to collect things. One of the collections is to get flowers and tulsi. And of course tulsi is a flower also, but tulsi leaves and tulsi flowers. So Shastra says that it's really important for our spiritual development to be in touch with tulsi every day. And one of the ways that we stay in touch with tulsi is because we have to bring tulsi to Krishna. And so when you take care of tulsi in your house, and then you bring tulsi leaves, and it purifies the consciousness so much. As the Shastra says, you'll read this in Nectar of Devotion, that just by seeing, touching, being near tulsi, then you become purified. And so when you take the manjaris and then you bring them to Krishna, it's purifying. And also collecting flowers should be in this kind of mentality. Where the human psyche needs to have, Prabhupada said, jewels and flowers and green environment. We become stifled if we're just in a concrete area all the time. We're locked in a cell somewhere. And so when we go out to get flowers, then your neighbors will see you out there and like, what the heck is this guy doing? It's so funny. I put flowers in the back and the front of the house. When I go to the front, where they bloom mostly in the winter. And every morning, people early in the morning heading off to work, they see me out there picking flowers. I can only imagine what they're thinking. Sun's not even up yet practically. It's like, God, the guy's picking flowers right at dawn. And then this is the life of devotional service. It's different. It's off the grid. It's different because we're on Krishna's program. And you just think, what good's a flower going to do? But if you collect these things and wash them, bring them to Krishna, then you feel happy. What to speak of if you offer something like sandesh to the deity? When I was in Alachua, they offer all these. There's so many advanced devotees there, and they like to do deity worship, and they make all these really amazing sweets, especially sandesh, which is like medicine. If you have any kind of ailment whatsoever, if you take Maha Sandesh, and even if it doesn't cure you of the disease, apparently you don't care anyway. But I'm just seeing how, this is when somebody hands you some Maha Sandesh that's been offered, this is like, all I could think of is that verse, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam. That this is Shuddha Sattva. It's just, it's the, and then you can eat it. You eat it and your whole body becomes purified. So this is, Krishna gives us, by having Krishna in our life, and we can offer these things. What to speak of cooking them for him. Who was next? You have, yes, Vrindavan.
I was thinking of when you said that you could have devotees association.
Yes.
Because when I was with Swami Maharaj, the first time I met him, I forgot where. I think it was at Sadhu Sangha. Rasika Mataji introduced me to him, and he made me feel very. He made me feel like a devotee of Lord Krishna. He made me feel like in a higher position. He made me feel like he brought me closer to Krishna. And when you said that you should have devotees association, also when Prabhu stayed in our house and he inspired me to chant 16 rounds, it was very
Who was that?
Kaushik.
Kaushik? Yeah, Satyadev Prabhu told me many, many years ago, Parvat Maharaj came. Parvat Maharaj came and stayed at his house. Does anybody know Parvat Maharaj, who lives in Radhakund? He's Prabhupada's disciple. And he's always been an Avadhuta. So he's very detached. Everyone okay? Any injury? Gita Priya? Did she survive? Let's see. She's okay. Thumbs up. So he lives in, actually he took the life of a Babaji. So he's lived in Vrindavan probably for 30 years or something, and then he leaves. And but once he had to come to San Francisco to get his visa extended. He may be a citizen nowadays, I don't know. It was a long time ago. And so he wears saffron and everything, and his hair is all grown out, but he wears cloth over his head, like you see Babas and Vrindavan and stuff. Anyway, he chants all day long. That's all he does. So he came to Satyadev Prabhu's house, and his kids were still living there. And one or two of them were into watching television. So when Maharaj came there, he brought his Govardhan Shila with him. And he set up his altar right on top of the TV. And that was the end of that. And then he'd be there when they come home at night from work or from school and everything like that. He'd be sitting there in his bed chanting. And when they'd wake up, no matter how early in the morning, he was sitting there chanting. And all he'd eat during the day, he'd eat a sweet potato or two and maybe a little avocado. That was it. And so, and then he'd walk around in the morning, and his Satyadev's neighbors were like, But Satyadev told me his kids who at the time were not so interested in Krishna consciousness, just because of Parvat Maharaj staying in their house for about 10 days or something like that, they all started getting interested suddenly. I mean, Satyadev felt like, well, I've been telling you for years, but you didn't listen to me. We're just breaking in your house. It's like before they brought the Yatra when you'd smash the cookies. So, sadhu can change everything. Somebody meets a sadhu, somebody is deeply, sadhu doesn't mean it has to have sannyasi dress or long hair, whatever. It's not the external thing, it's the deep dedication. The person carries something very profound within the heart, and it can change one's life. There was a couple more? Yes.
I just think I like the point which you mentioned about how Prabhupada, when he told us devotees association, you think you can advance this.
Yeah, Prabhupada saying without devotees association, you're living a hallucination.
And I was thinking how many times when we don't take devotees very seriously, we take them for granted.
Yeah.
And then later on we realize that they're actually very grateful.
Yes. He said we might take devotees for granted, and later on we realize how unusual they are. So, Navina Narada Prabhu gave a seminar while he was during the ILS at Mayapur this year, and one of the points he was making is that none of the devotees are expendable. We shouldn't think like, oh, it doesn't matter. You should remember what Prabhupada said, that every one of them, he said, better than kings. We keep that mentality in mind. Shesh Lila.
So I was really struck by the point about the embassy and your realization when you saw the embassy in Calcutta.
She's recalling about the embassy and how he saw the American embassy in Calcutta.
And I was reading also for our Bhakti Vaibhav, we are reading the Dhruv Maharaj chapter and how Narad Muni asked him to go to Madhuvan. And I was thinking that Madhuvan existed, looks like even in Satyuga. So it's not just manifested after Dwapara.
Yeah, that's right. So Madhuvan existed in Satyuga, not just in the present age. It's an eternal place. Yes. Malini?
You offer results of your Sankirtan?
Yes, it said for Gauri-Nitai you can offer Sankirtan. Yes.
Since Ramati Prabhu and Mataji moved here to
Since Ramrati and family moved here,
actually the Sankirtan has grown so much.
the Sankirtan has grown so much.
Now every Saturday they go out on book distribution. I don't think they've missed any.
And every Saturday they go out on book distribution. Yeah, it's amazing how one person, one family can make a significant impact on a community, on the world. And that's, if someone has a deep vow within their heart to worship Krishna, come what may, this has an effect on everybody. And you're having that effect, all of your whole family. Hare Krishna. Well, any more? Yes.
I was just thinking how he said that these 5 processes, even if we are having very little faith, that gives lots of hope, because sometimes our faith gets tested, and these days in modern day don't have faith in anything, but still just doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's recalling that these 5 processes, even without faith in them, if one has even a little connection with them, one will still make advancement. So in this age, she was saying, it's hard to have faith in anything, but if you just do it, these 5 things, stay close to them somehow or other, then you'll advance. Yes, it's very encouraging the way, that was Lord Chaitanya, and the way he encouraged us all to teaching Sanatana Goswami. He made what seems to be impossible possible for everybody. And then Prabhupada took that same mood and he brought it yena tena prakarina, one way or another, somehow or another. And he tolerated so much, just like when he first came to America and he was teaching people who had no idea about what the culture is. And they were addicted to so many different kinds of sinful activities. Even when Shyamsundar was carving Jagannath for the first time, Prabhupada went up to see his progress. He was on the roof carving the deity. And then he found, Prabhupada saw, on the initial carving, Shyamsundar had a pack of cigarettes because he was smoking while he was up there, carving the deity, because that's what he was used to doing. And Prabhupada didn't say anything, but he just smacked the pack and knocked it off. And he said, Shyamsundar said, oh yeah, I have this habit. And then Prabhupada said, smoke 1 less every day. And when Prabhupada had been bringing the devotees closer, there was actually a sangha there. And he walked by one day in the neighborhood near the temple, and he saw they were all sitting in a diner there, having refreshments of some kind. And there was a donut shop. said later, said donut means do not. But he tolerated so many things, like, the original kirtans that were there, he let everybody bring any kind of instrument. You can hear these outrageous kirtans, they're very sweet. In the early days when Prabhupada was teaching people to chant and dance. And, the hippies would bring any instrument they had, including trumpets, bugles, and things they could bang on, and everything like that. And there's a cacophony of sound in there, and then you hear the holy name. Prabhupada tolerated that. He just wanted that somehow or other people have connection to these 5 things. Because he knew that they would come up, and they did. It's just gradually by some magic, as Prabhupada used to put it when people ask him, what is your mystic potency? What can you create? And Prabhupada said, look what I created. These are inveterate
hippies into happies.
Hippies into happies. I've changed their hearts of these people and their culture and everything like that. As those who do Western preaching know, that's practically impossible, right? It's like Devamrita Swami said, when you go out in the world and then you try to inculcate Krishna consciousness to others, he said, get ready for the zoo. There's all kinds of people, they'll say, yeah, this is great, and then 2 weeks later they'll come back and they've flipped in a completely different direction. And, so one has to tolerate all these things. It's very difficult. One has to tolerate it within oneself as well. Yes.
Maharaj, I was talking to Vaishnava Tosni, and he told me that, in DMV nowadays there is a black, if you want the number plate which says atheist.
If you want to get an atheist plate?
Yeah, number plate. There is a black, people have to bid for that. And I was thinking, this Kali Yuga is so real nowadays that, without this 5 steps of processes, it would be, sometimes we think, okay, Kali Yuga, but it's so real, right in our face right now. So.
Yes, very much so. There's no rest for those spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, because Kali is looking for any little crack and will exploit it. Maya can get into the tiniest little crack. So we have to be very, very tight in our consciousness and not become lax or let down our guard, or forget, as I brought up in the very beginning, that this life is very temporary and there's no guarantee for anyone at any time. But it's very valuable, and if you take advantage of these simple processes that Lord Chaitanya gave, then you can make a complete success of life. We're meant to transfer from this place to a place that's eternal and full of knowledge. And Narada Muni did it. He's given it as an example in the Bhakti Sandarbha. There's 3 kinds of devotees. One, as it's described in detail in the Bhakti Sandarbha, but one of Prabhupada's godbrothers used to say, it's like, one person is in the spiritual world looking down. That's one kind of devotee, descends from the spiritual world. One has 1 foot in this world, 1 foot in the spiritual world. And the other has both feet in this world, but is fully fixed on the spiritual world. Anyway, Bhakti Sandarbha mentions Narada, how in the beginning, when he first started off his devotional practice, then Krishna called him a ku yogi. He said, you're a bad yogi still, you gotta stay here. But he was fully fixed on achieving the goal. And later, when he practiced throughout his life, he did achieve the goal. When he left his body, it was like lightning and illumination simultaneously. So he left his physical body behind, but he attained a spiritual body immediately upon leaving the body, without even noticing practically that he's leaving the body. So we're meant to transfer from this world of temporality into the spiritual world. And Krishna says, Yanti Deva Vrata Deva, Pitran Yanti Pratir Vrata, Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja, Yanti Ma Yajinopima. So you can go wherever you like. It's up to you. Wherever you decide you can go, wherever you point your consciousness, you're going to end up. Because that's what's directing us. And now we have the next part of our program, which is that we're going door to door, right here in this very complex. Molly is going, yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you for such enlightening lecture. One point I really liked, you said, you were mentioning about Shatyadev Prabhu, how he said just by seeing the altar I can say the consciousness. So I just wondering that it's really inspiring how Ramrati Prabhu and Kamalashri Mataji, every endeavor they try to make Krishna as the center of their house. They meditate on how to go out on book distribution, or how to invite devotees, how to serve their lordships. So it's a privilege to have such inspiring devotees among us.
Yes,
Thank you
and
for the
coming to this home is the same as coming to a temple. And I mentioned that early on. This is what Lord Chaitanya's conception was, that every home should become a temple. He went house to house. He didn't tell everyone, you have to build a big temple in town. He said that you should transform your own house into a temple, each place. And he said it's a simple thing. You just get together in a circle just like this one here and chant Hare Krishna. And by doing that, then you'll create the Vaikuntha atmosphere. ¿Cuál es este programa?
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for coming and blessing us.
Hare Krishna.
I was just thinking, Maharaj, it was always in my mind, just wanted to share that when we were coming from Pune, and it so happened my flight was booked, and I just happened to go to mayapur.com, and I was reading different lectures, and I happened to see your lecture, the transcript of it. And before that, somehow I never heard your lecture. So I was reading, and I was so inspired, and we moved to Philadelphia. And I came to know you very actually San Jose. So I was thinking, how would I actually be hearing from you, because I was liking the classes so much. So in Philadelphia, it so happened that you were the first one to visit. And we landed, the first lecture we heard was yours. So I was just thinking how it was Krishna's arrangement. And of course then Maharaj also suggested that we should move to ISV. And our
Thanks to
God's
Maharaj.
Godmother Govind Prabhu and Vaisesika Mataji, they were always guiding us. So we are honored and blessed to be here, Maharaj.
When was that in Philadelphia?
This was in 2013.
Okay, we were there for the Sankirtan, I think.
Yes,
The
that's
developing
right.
Sankirtan party, because Dana Tarpita,
Dana Tarpita and
Swami
also-
Datri, they were
Yes,
developing at that time.
right. So they are the one actually who taught us how to go door to door, and we used to actually
Oh,
go
that's
with them.
great.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah, and I always feel it's such a nice feeling when Maharaj recommends people to come here. When Indradurna Maharaj says, he'll tell his disciples, yeah, you should go to ISV. Because, to have the confidence of your advanced godbrothers, that they would entrust you with their very dearly beloved disciples is a touching responsibility to have. So, thank you for revealing all that. And then Krishna's making all these arrangements. I mean, like Prabhupada said at the end of his talk for the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said in a succession of points, he said, who knew? And he would bring up that, somehow I would leave India. Who knew we would come together? Who knew? And he was appreciating the fact that Krishna's making all these arrangements. We don't know exactly how and what arrangement Krishna will make, but if we're sincere and we practice Krishna consciousness, we can experience throughout our life that he does make such arrangements. And this is faith building, isn't it? And also when we take risks as well, we say, I'm going to take a risk to serve Krishna, and then Krishna does what he says in the Bhagavad Gita, that I care what you lack and preserve what you have. You were going to say something. I sensed it, but I
Thank you so much for coming, Maharaj, and please bless us.
Can come front?
Oh, you can come forward and then you can be in front
Oh, with
of
the camera.
another 20,000 people.
I just wanted to thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for coming, and please bless us that we can always serve devotees.
Dear Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada, please bless the entire family that they can always serve devotees. Thank you for considering.
Just one thing I wanted to explain, Maharaj, is Mataji could not come, so please offer our...
I will. I will. She was really toured. She wanted to come. But I explained earlier. We're on Swami time. When you're on Swami time, anything can happen.
Thank you for taking care of us. We really feel blessed and nourished being in ISV, and all the devotees of ISV. They've been, right from day one, we just never felt that we are new to this place. They've been very nicely taking care of us, engaging us. So, bless each one of us.
God Premanande. Any other thing? Any other program, or are we just heading to the temple now? All this and
His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu ki Jai! Srila Prabhupada ki Jai!
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey! Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.